Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm Jonathan Little. We are here for a little coffee. Oh, let's have some coffee. It's bright and early, Monday morning. Relax yourselves. Take it easy. And start your day productively in a nice, positive, logical, helpful attitude to improve the lives of others. That's why we're here. I'm kind of tired. Last night I commentated the WPT United Kingdom final table. That was a whole lot of fun. It was a great final table with a few known world-class players, also quite a few players who I personally did not know, but they were very, very strong players. So that was great to watch. And they inspired me to do this talk today on a little coffee on going for it. Very often at the final table, there are a player or two who get in there and they fight, they take whatever aggressive spots they find within reason, and, sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but very, very often, those are the players who make deep runs. And that was exactly what happened here. There were two players. One of them got a hold of the chip lead early and then raised a lot, re-raised a lot, really played his big stack beautifully. He didn't actually put his big stack at risk all that often. He was doing a whole lot of jamming from late position, as he should, min raising from early position, as he should, and also not calling all-ins in close spots, which was actually a really good adjustment against his particular opponents because they weren't jamming all that often, right? I was commentating with Tony Dunce, and there were a few spots where I was like, yeah, I'd probably call here, but, thinking back, there are many scenarios where you just don't want to risk giving up your chip lead if they're not jamming all in on you a lot. Just remember something I have to talk about to you. I wrote it down. And so, that player was getting after it. It was fantastic. Also, the player who won, he was the biggest stack at the final table at the beginning. I think he had maybe 25% of the chips, so it's not like he was a big chip leader. But then he played fine, played great, but then lost like every hand for the first 3 hours. And he went from the chip leader to one of the shallow stacks, and he just continued playing great. And he had a few spots. I remember there's one hand vividly where the chip leader raised. He defended 6-4 of hearts in the big blind, something nobody else was doing. Flop came ace 9-7. He checked, chip leader bet. He check raised with the 6-4 of hearts on ace 9-7, 1 heart. And I was telling Tony, I'm like, if you have a tight image like he kind of does, this is actually a reasonable spot to go for the check raise. Because you have backdoor draw, the opponent's probably opening way too wide, which he was. He actually had jack 10 on that board. And he got the fold, right? He did that hand. Heads up, he ran a big bluff right off the bat. That succeeded. He made a big call. His opponent, the chip leader who was in there battling too, he triple barreled his stack all in, got called. So they were fighting, right? And those were the two players who inevitably make deep runs. You may say, but if you're making lots of big bluffs, or at least bluffs in general, and getting in there and you're in lots of pots, doesn't that mean you're going to lose a lot of pots? And it does. But don't forget that you win or roughly chop the blinds and antes every time you play a hand. So what happens is if you're just in there breaking even, imagine you win half your hands, lose half your hands. I know it's not exactly like that. But imagine you're winning half your hands and losing half your hands. What happens is you and the other player in the pot chop up the blinds and antes every single time you're in there. So as long as you're not too absurd, your stack slowly trickles up, and everybody else's stack slowly trickles down. And that's why the people who are in there fighting typically do better than the very weak nitty players. Even though the weak nitty players, they get their money in good the vast majority of the time. Getting your money in good is not the test of a good poker player. Winning the chips long term is the test. So get in there and battle. Another spot that came up where maybe Tony and I were of differing opinions. I'm not sure. Talked to a lot of very, very world-class players about this, though, and I think I'm on their side. There's a situation where the big stack jammed for 20 big blinds. Okay, big shove from the small blind. In this scenario, there was one big stack, 3 or 4 middle stacks. Okay. The player to his direct left had ace-4 suited. And this is a fold. If you just look straight at the math, ace-4 suited is a close fold facing a 20 big blind shove in a very clear ICM spot. There were payout implications, right? In that scenario, though, I think he actually should have called. And the reason is because if he calls and wins, he will get a double up through the chip leader. Him and the chip leader will now have roughly an equal stack, but he'll be in position. When there are two chip leaders next to each other, the one in position is the one who gets to play way more than their fair share of the pots. So, in that situation, if he calls and wins, look, he's going to be the favorite a lot of the time because the chip leader should be jamming quite wide. I think he had like, I don't know, Jack 10 or something, Queen 10, something like that. It was a fine shove, but Ace-4 suited's like okay against it. You're probably going to win about 50% of the time, 55% of the time. And in that scenario, 55% of the time, you are essentially the new chip leader in position against the other chip leader and can run them over. 45% of the time, you're out in 4th, 5th, 6th place, whatever it was. But that's going to probably work out better because what's the alternative? Think of the alternative. Nobody else was giving away their money, right? They were all sitting there being tight. What's going to happen is the chip leader is going to chip up. I mean, I predicted this whenever chip leader had 6 million chips. Everybody else had like 3 or 2. I said, what's going to happen here, Tony, is unless the chip leader gets set up, chip leader's going to be up to 10 million chips within the next hour or two. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He raised, everybody folded, jammed, everybody folded. And he went from 6 million to 10 million. Everybody else has slowly got blinded down. And you do not want to engage in a blind out war because then what happens is you just don't get to take first place very often at all. And it turns out the one other short stack who was in there battling, he's the one who ended up getting heads up and he's the one who ended up winning the tournament. So don't be afraid to get in there and go for it. There was another scenario where I'm always unsure how clear I'm explaining these things whenever I don't have a PowerPoint in front of me because it makes it really easy because I can just point to the PowerPoint. When the chip leader's on your right, what happens is that player is going to raise a lot, which means when you're on their direct left, you are the player who gets to capitalize on them raising too often, right? There was a player around on the other side of the table, halfway across from the chip leader, who was in a similar scenario where the chip leader jammed, I think, and he had something like ace-8 offsuit in the big blind. Comparable spot to the ace-4 suited earlier, but I said he should have folded. And it was for a few fewer chips, and that's because if he doubles up, he's on the other side of the table from the chip leader, and he can't really punish the chip leader anymore. But in that scenario, the player who had the ace-4 suited on the direct left of the chip leader, he should have just called. I'm actually working with the guy, Draft Ganger, one of the absolute best poker players in the world, to work on a chapter in my upcoming book, Excelling in Tough No-Limit Hold'em Games or something like that. And he talks about this a lot, about how ICM just doesn't apply. And, he doesn't necessarily straight up say ICM is wrong, but he does say there are spots where I and a lot of the best players in the world ignore it. And if you ignore it, you're saying that you think it is wrong. And funny enough, what happened is after the chip leader continued jamming, now the player on the chip leader's right is just screwed. They can't put a chip in the pot. And that guy sat there, played tight, basically blinded out, as he should. But that sucks for him. And there were many spots where it folded him with something like King 5 suited on the button, right? King 5 suited is just a normal raise, but he did not want to raise and just get re-raised by the chip leader and have to fold. So the fact that the chip leader was the chip leader gave him many, many more opportunities, right? And things like ICM don't account for that very well. I mean, they have future game simulations where it can try to look a few hands into the future, but it's not perfect. And when you can take a kind of marginal spot, like when you're a medium stack, and turn it to where you are the big stack some portion of the time, you should usually go for it. Which is the topic of today, going for it. Let's see what all the topics you have. Okay, talk about Mike Postle. Go to youtube.com, search Jonathan Little Mike Postle. I had a little talk about that. It'll come right up. Let's see. Flame Walker and Babbling Book are returning to Hearthstone. Oh boy. I don't know if I care about Babbling Book all that much. Flame Walker, though. My first deck was Young Apprentice Flame Walker, Mana Worm. Oh, it was so good. I don't have a section on paired boards and double paired boards. Okay, good idea. Where's my paper? Paired boards and double paired boards. Okay, there you go. If you're a Poker Coaching Premium member and there are topics that I have not discussed in the classes, let me know and I'll make a video on it. Let's see. Is a polarized range typically not needed at all in 1-2 games? No. Well, I'm saying a polarized range is often needed in 1-2 games. Are there times to play GTO in low-stakes games? Probably not so much, but understanding GTO principles is very, very useful. So does the chip leader erase positional strength? So Ben, the scenario I was talking about there is the button had like 25 big blinds, okay? If the button raises to 2, 2, 3, 2, 2.5, 3 big blinds, the chip leader can then just shove with any 2 cards because there were like 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 other 10 or 15 or 20 big blind stacks. So if the middle stack raises, the big stack gets to jam on them with that shallow stack scenario. And in that situation, essentially the middle stack is screwed. They just can't put a chip in the pot if the big stack's going to be aggressive, which he was. Louis Fleet needs to know when not to go for it. Maybe you go for it too often. I would say Louis Fleet in cash games, don't go for it as often because people have an incentive to not fold. Whereas in tournaments, people have a big incentive to fold to get the payout jump and move up. But I'm not saying go for it every time, but I am saying in logical spots, go for it. I mean, the final bust out hand, I'm probably going to get this slightly wrong, but basically, one player raised Jack 10, other player called with 9-7 suited, or 9-7 offsuit, one of the two. It came 9-7-3, something like that. 9-7 checked, opponent bet, 9-7 called. I was kind of surprised he just called there, but he did. And I actually said right here to Tony Dunce that if we get a blank on the turn, they're going to get to play a big pot. Turn was a blank. It was like a 4 or 2 or something. 9-7 checked. Jack 10 bets. Pretty big. 9-7 called. There was a flush draw on the flop, by the way, too, which was why I was kind of surprised 9-7 called. Anyway, river was a king. I'm like, well, here it is. 9-7 checked. Jack 10 for the gut shot, busted gut shot, went all in. 9-7 called. And I think that bluff was perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. A good bluff. And he got called and he lost. But that's okay. So realize that sometimes when you do run big bluffs, they're not going to succeed. And to be fair, the other player right before it ran a big bluff too. So, I mean, they're in there. They're battling. It just turns out that the other player kept running into very marginal hands, whereas the first one of the times that the chip leader tried it, he ran into 2 pair. Let's see. So you're saying if the big stack has position, you should proceed with caution. Absolutely. So, say you do want to play that king 5 suited there. What can you do? You have a few options. What I would do, instead of open folding it, is I would develop a limping strategy on the button with a 25 big blind stack, with the big stack in the small blind, and a bunch of other medium stacks at the table. I actually talk about this with DraftGanger, about how we go through a whole tournament hand history that he made a deep run in, where he was the medium stack, and he did a whole lot of limping, because if you limp, you get to see flops, you get to call raises, and that works out great. It's way better than raising and getting jammed off your hand, right? So we discussed that a ton. How do you get away from kings? Oh, don't get away from kings. I have an article about this. Go read or search Jonathan Little, fold pocket kings. I'm sure it'll come back up. It'll come right up for you. Do you think it's even worth having a strategy when you get quads? Well, whenever you have an effective nut hand that cannot be outdrawn, and you block a lot of the opponent's hands that they can continue with, you usually want to do a whole lot of checking. But for example, let's say early position raises, you call pocket 7s on the button and it comes 7-7-2. If they check, you don't want to check because they can easily have a lot of ace high and pairs, right? If instead you raise under the gun with aces and the big blind calls and it comes ace-ace-3, that's a spot where you should probably check because your opponent has a whole lot of unpaired garbage, right? So you have to ask, how well does the opponent connect with the range? Maybe you're saying that since it doesn't come up very often, you shouldn't worry about it. And while that is true, it's not really a question of quads. It's more a question of how do you play your nut hands when your opponents cannot outdraw you. And really, it just depends on how connected the board is. Like, say you raise with 9s under the gun, and the big blind calls, and it comes 10-9-9. That's a pretty good hand to bet, right? Because your opponent can easily have all those draws right around it, and they could have a 10. So it's not quite as easy as how do you play quads, right? It's like saying, how do you play top pair? Well, it depends, right? If you have pocket aces on 9-8-7, 3 diamonds, aces with no diamond, you don't like your hand very much, right? Good morning from Lexi, our new poker coaching coach. Let me know some topics you would like to learn from our new female poker pro. So if you have any topics for Lexi, let us know. I'm happy to forward them to her. Good morning, Lexi. Bright and early. It's 9 a.m. here. I don't know where you are. Let's see. There is this idea that you don't really need to worry about any very, very, very specific spot because it doesn't come up. For example, say you flop a straight flush. If you open fold your hand every time you flop a straight flush, it won't actually affect your overall win rate all that much. And the reason is because you don't flop straight flushes very often. I don't know if I've ever flopped a straight flush. Just like flopped it right there. I'm sure I have actually. If you play enough hands, it'll happen. But you could take your straight flush and just put it in the muck, and it would not actually affect your overall win rate that often. That said, you don't want to take your nuts and put it into the muck. You just don't do that, right? So don't do that. The things you really do need to focus on in general, though, are like things that come up very frequently, right? So you raise pre-flop, your opponent calls, you miss the flop. What do you do? Those are the kind of things that are very, very relevant. Let's see. Kevin says, Daniel, this is a possible free zone. Well, let's talk about this in general, because a lot of people, I'm sure, are going to start accusing everyone of cheating now. Anyone who has a good win rate, anyone who has very good results is going to probably be accused of it. Now, that's a problem, because most people are not actually cheating. I was talking to someone who used to work for support for a major poker site, and they said something like 20% of the emails they got were from people saying, I lost my aces 3 times in a row, the site's rigged. And like clearly that's asinine, right? And that's the problem, is that we are dealing with a lot of asinine people on the internet. I don't think people realize how ignorant the discussion is on a lot of the poker forums. Unfortunately, that's what happens when anything goes very mainstream. And poker went mainstream a few years ago, right? 10 years ago. And what's happened is all of the actual intelligent people have moved off of the mainstream forums because they realize that nothing good is going on those forums, right? Like if you're still posting on the major poker forums, there's really only one. I'm sure you all know we don't give them promotion because they are very toxic over there. I try to not send people to toxic places. It just ends up being a lot of toxic people, and nothing really great happens there. And it's a shame that that is what people think they're supposed to be doing. So be very careful trying to share ideas with people who are really just not with it. Because the ideas that you get back from them are often just not going to be very good. All right, anyway, let's get off that. If you want to debate, there really isn't much to debate. Some people want to debate and fight and talk about things. And we don't need to fight and debate and talk about things, although the topic for today is going for it. Doesn't really apply here, though. 3 times. Definition of the short run. Yeah, a lot of people don't get that, though. They're like, oh, I saw this guy play a hand, and it was weird, and it worked out. He must be cheating. Like, no. Because people play hands oddly all the time. And in theory, the last thing you want to do is accuse the fish of cheating, the whales, because those are the players you really want in the game. Those are the ones you welcome in the game. Sometimes they're going to beat you. You want them to beat you. You want them to beat you because then they're going to keep coming back and playing for forever. I think a lot of people don't realize that whenever you lose, it's essentially advertising. Take a casino, for example, right? When they spread a roulette game, when they have a roulette wheel there, and someone binks number 32 for a lot of money, the pit boss isn't like, oh no, that sucks for me in the casino. No, they're happy. They'll be like high-fiving you. They want these people hitting their 32 and causing a party and getting everybody over there to their game. And poker is the exact same way. You want the players who are making absurd plays in your game. It's kind of rough, though, because I do realize the only reason Postel got caught is because, first off, Veronica was there very frequently and was like on the ground in the scenario actually observing. And they had loads of video data. In what other world do they have loads of video data? It's like none, right? I mean, nobody knows what cards people have. And it's a very, very interesting scenario that came up. It was like the perfect storm where Postel had to be dumbly egregious. Also, he had to do it very frequently. So he had to be doing it very often in-game. He had to be doing it very frequently in terms of over and over again. Because imagine he just played 1/10 of the sessions. He would just look like lucky fish, right? Because he would only have like 5 or 10 games on the stream. Said he had 50 or whatever it was, right? Also, well, they had to have video footage of it all, right? You probably, if you're, this is going to be a little bit of cheating tip for everyone. If you're going to cheat, don't do it right there on the camera for everyone to see all day, every day. Anyway, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. But don't worry, we'll be going to court. My lawyer's on the case. I'm not going to spoil that for everyone, but we're good to go. All right. Let's see. Can you win in a state like Texas where card rooms charges per hour for your seats? Well, they charge per hour for your seat in high-stakes cash games. Can you beat small-stakes cash games like that? It depends on how much they charge for your seat per hour, right? All right. What's a decent bankroll for 50-cent dollar? Well, go read jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll. So when you say he was caught, that means he's guilty. No, I did not say that. Don't put words in my mouth. He is guilty when a court of law defines him to be guilty, at least in the legal definition. He is certainly accused, and there is loads of data supporting it. So take that for what you think it means. Also, again, so many people are on the idea, he is guilty. It's not a he game here. It is a they. They are guilty, but we do not know who, well, they are likely guilty. We do not know who they are. And that's something that everyone seems to be forgetting. It's clear Mike was doing it, right? But he wasn't doing it by himself. It's definitive in my mind he wasn't doing it by himself. So if he's not doing it by himself, who else was there? Let's get off this topic. This has been played out so much. All right. Hopefully you get refunded the money you lost. Yeah, good luck. Let's see. Good seeing you, buddy. Good seeing you. Oh, someone said. I posted a video of me on YouTube with my wife and kid, James, talking about that instance. And a few people said something to the effect of, you're a bad dad for putting your kid on YouTube. And I think what they don't understand is I'm not forcing my kid to be in there on YouTube. He wants to be. Whenever I am making a show, he stands right here. For those who don't know, there's a literal window right here. Can you see this window right there? He stands right there. I'll show you all. He stands right at the window and watches me. He's not there right now because he's at school. But he wants to be in the show. And in the morning, he's like, Daddy, can I be on your show today? And I say, no, you have to go to school. But every once in a while, when the timing works out, I let him do what he wants to do. I like to have fun with my children. And it's interesting that people think that they are qualified to give parenting advice to other people. Just in general. Especially unsolicited parenting advice. If you solicit the parenting advice, then sure. But in terms of where I go for parenting advice, it's not the comment section of poker videos on YouTube. When you have a 10% rake capped at 5 big blinds, oh my gosh, at 2-2, is that possible to make $50,000 a year? I don't know. Do the math. I mean, think about this, Sin for Life. If you make $4 per hour, can you make $50,000 a year? I think so. If you play, 18 hours a day? Something like that? There you go. People are always going to talk, especially about things that have nothing to do with them. Indeed. And the interesting thing is that it's important to realize, I think smart people realize this, but I don't think not so smart people realize this. It's that everyone's opinion is not valued equally. People like the idea of I have a voice, but your voice doesn't really matter if you're not an expert on the topic. For example, I don't walk around giving people parenting advice. I don't walk around giving people advice about much of anything besides exactly poker because I'm not an expert at much of anything besides poker, right? For the longest time, I did not say anything about anything because I was not an expert at anything. I was a young, dumb kid. And young, dumb kids don't need to walk around giving people advice. That's ignorant. And it's very important to be very self-aware and know what you are actually good at and what you can actually help people with and what you cannot, right? And it seems like a lot of the people think that just because they can type or they can speak, that their opinion should be valued equally to an expert. And it just shouldn't be, right? And to be fair, some experts' opinions shouldn't be valued, and that's up for you to figure it out. One thing that happens on one of the poker forums, again, something that's completely stupid, is people will like respect people who have been around for a long time. Like they've been on the poker forum for 20 years, therefore they must be respected. It's like, why? Because they've sat in front of their computer typing nonsense for 20 years, you should look up to these people? It's asinine. It's completely asinine. Just the other day, someone, well, the person in charge of the forum said a very funny thing. It was, if you raise and someone goes all in for 15 big blinds or 20 big blinds, you should call them with the same range because like it doesn't matter all that much. It's close, right? It's close either way. An extra 2% or whatever it is. It doesn't matter all that much. But that's just asinine because it does matter. And it's insane to me that people look at these people and they respect these people and they think that they know what they are doing. Whereas in reality, they're just completely oblivious and they're living in their own little bubble. So get out of your own little bubble to the best of your ability. I know the internet is really good at putting you into a bubble and keeping you there. But it's tough to know whose opinion to listen to. Really is. It's tough to know. Tough to know who to learn from. So how do you do that? I mean, that's a real question. You have to get in there and listen. Don't actually blindly follow. Don't blindly follow me, that's for sure. Don't blindly follow anyone. I actually said in my very first poker book, back there, right at the beginning, you do not have to have any sort of formal degree or qualifications whatsoever to produce educational poker material. So, do your absolute best to make sure the material you are learning from is valid. Because I know that the vast majority of poker books that were written are not very good. The vast majority. They maybe actually were good back in the day, but they are definitely not good now. I mean, my first poker book 10 years ago was written very clearly to exploit the weak type passive play advocated by the previous most popular poker book. And turns out, everyone who followed my book crushed them. Why? Because everybody else had just learned from something that wasn't right. And it is what it is, right? Anyway, are we going to be expanding poker coaching to PLO? Maybe. That's probably the game we're going to go to first. In cash games, the raises are very big. Should you still be making your 3-bets 3x generally? 3x is fine, maybe even a little bit smaller. As your opponents put in more and more money pre-flop, your raise sizes can become smaller. Is there a way you can watch the full-length Cards Up sessions? I know Joe Ingram has lots of videos. Lots of videos discussing, going through the whole review. So look up Joe Ingram. I think he has like 4 very long sessions. And good work by Joe Ingram going through all those hands and making the data very, very clear, right? So definitely did great work on that. I'm concerned about the internet trolls turning people away. No, if anything, if anyone has half a brain, they'll realize all the holes in the video. And it should turn them on to my content, if anything, because it's clear the guy doesn't exactly know what's going on. But, listen. Whenever you are successful, there are always going to be people who are trying to tear you down. I mean, look at Daniel Negreanu, right? I know some people love him, some people hate him. People have made careers out of just trying to tear him down. And they do a great job of attracting the bottom of the barrel people, right? Because whenever you hate on someone, you attract people who also enjoy hating on people. Think about how little you have to have going on in your life to spend your time talking poorly about others. The people who are out there who are actually succeeding are doing good work, producing things that are valuable to people. And the idea that I'm going to talk poorly about others to try to attract other people who talk poorly about others or want to talk poorly about others is a very asinine thought process. So, yeah, if there are people out there who spend their time talking nonsense on the internet, those are not really the people I'm trying to attract. I'm trying to attract smart people who want to better their lives. And that's clearly not people who are spending their time talking poorly about people. What has my son taught me about poker? That I really love going to play poker every once in a while. Oh, goodness. Yeah, more trash talk is better, Kappa. Exactly. Oh, let's see. Negreanu has never stopped trying to level up. I generally agree with this. Look, I generally like Negreanu. I mean, we're not like best buds or anything, but we're friendly. Every time I see him, we say hello and we chat for a bit. And I like that he is always trying to improve, because he went through a period of his life, kind of like I went through a period of my life, where his poker results started to lack. And lack or slack? His poker results started to slack? I think it's slack. Anyway, what did he do? He started studying and worked hard. And that was great. Good job, good work. He has some very stupid life ideas. Again, listen, I'm not talking about... Look, people get so emotionally attached to things, right? And you have to step back and recognize, like, what has Negreanu done in theory? He was a random poker player who had a bit of a personality, who had nothing going for him to start besides just a lot of grit, and he somehow parlayed that to being one of the wealthiest poker players in the world. And that is a heck of a parlay. And if you cannot look at that and think that that is a very good result, then it's ridiculous. And to be fair, he was in the right place at the right time a lot of the time, which is, lucky to some extent. I was in the right place at the right time to be where I am today. If I wasn't born in 1984 or 1985 or 1983, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I'd be somewhere else. Right place at the right time, right? That's just lucky. If people like Bill Gates were not born at the right time in the right physical location in America near a computer, probably wouldn't have been Bill Gates. But anyway, you can look at people, even if you don't like their ideas or their concepts or whatever, right? Like, a lot of people don't like Negreanu because he's very clearly a Democrat. And that's enough for them, like, oh, I hate the guy because he's a Democrat. Or people look at Madison, I hate the guy because he's a Republican. Like, whatever. Like, you have to get these very emotionally attached things out of your head and realize everyone is just trying to do their best with their situation. I mean, going back to the haters, a lot of them have so little going on in their lives that that's all they can possibly aspire to, is to try to ride the bootstraps of others and drag those people down and try to claw their ways to be even in the same conversation. And that sucks for them, but I can tell them there's better ways to go about it, because I was just a random kid with nothing going on, right? You can build things instead of trying to tear things down. So anyway, in every industry, there are great people, and some people try to tear them down. Other people aspire to be like them by being equally good. And I've always tried to aspire to be equally good, not drag people down. All right, let's see. Oh, everyone talking about guns and whatnot now. Am I Canadian? I'm not Canadian. I'm American. Being an American is actually a big detriment to being a professional poker player. They take a lot of taxes. You won't get backed by an online site or sponsored by an online site. At least it's hard to. And yeah, taxes and not being from a specific country are pretty rough. Let's see. How do you know if you're a winning player? From 100 hands or charts? Not from 100 hands, that's for sure. You know you're a winning player from... what? Well, in terms of hands is kind of an irrelevant sample unless you're talking about cash games. Cash games, 100,000 hands is a pretty solid sample. That said, good players have had 100,000 break-even stretches, no problem. So maybe it's not the best sample. But how do you know if you're good? You're winning. Are you winning or are you losing? If you're winning and you're consistent, you're probably good. Come on, USA. Yeah, USA is a great country, but it's not a great place for a poker player. Very different things. Again, don't get wrapped up. So many people are wrapped up in the idea of America's great, that they cannot look at it and see the situations where it's not so great. To be fair, there's like way more worse places to be a poker player. Like I know in Israel, you can't even play. I was talking to a guy who runs a poker school in Israel. Very nice guy. And he's like, yeah, I have to travel every single time I want to play anywhere. And it sucks. And he's like, yeah, people don't even have many underground games because the penalties are harsh. And they take lots of taxes, and it's like, well, God, get out of there, man. At least for poker players, right? Again, I'm sure all of you are like, oh, Israel, emotions go crazy again. And you got to get these emotions out of here. If you are emotionally charged about everything, you're just going to have such swings in your life that you're never going to be able to think clearly and make good, rational decisions. What events am I playing next? I'm going to Jacksonville on... Where's my phone? Oh, here's my phone. I'm going to Jacksonville on the 10th. I don't know what day that is. I guess that's Thursday, so I'll be here with you again on Wednesday. And I'm going to go play. They have a $2,000 tournament and a $5,000 tournament. I'm a bounty. Definitely check that out. It's a bounty tournament. Matt Affleck, poker coaching coach, will be there. So that'll be a lot of fun. I also have a $20,000 buy-in event. I doubt that'll be very good, but if it is good, we'll have money there. We're ready to go if it's good. Then I'm going to go to the Party Poker Caribbean Poker Party. It's a tongue twister, but I mastered it. Party Poker Caribbean Poker Party. Boom. There are lots of events there. High buy-in tournaments, low buy-in tournaments. Last year, it was $10 million guaranteed for the $10,000 main event. It is again this year. And they had a lot of satellites running. I actually didn't play them because I was stuck in tournaments, which is not a bad problem. But you can go there, buy in for $1,000, and have something like $1,200 in equity just because they're adding seats and guaranteeing way more seats than they're going to give away. So if you play poker and you are on the east coast of America for sure, it should probably be in the Bahamas. Word on the street is we're in the middle of the second poker boom, especially in Europe. What have I observed or heard on that front? I don't know. Small and medium stakes poker is booming. We'll see if some of that money trickles up. At the beginning, this sample size cannot be taken into account, right? Look, any sample you have indicates something. If you play 100 hands, that is a better indication of your skill than if you've played 5 hands, right? If you've played 10,000 hands, that's a better indication than 100. You can't say definitively what your win rate is, but let's just say you play 10,000 hands and you lose hard, like you just get crushed. Well, you're probably not doing something right and you're probably not very good. If you win a pretty good amount, you're probably doing something right. And when I say probably, I don't mean definitively. And you can never say definitively. I was always really nitty when it came to moving up, pushing my bankroll, etc. And that's because I wanted to definitively know, or at least as close to definitively know, if I was a winning player as I could. And that actually kept me from taking risks that perhaps I should have. So recognize, embrace the fact that you will not necessarily know what your win rate is, and that is okay. Is EV big blind per 100 good for tournaments? Yeah, it is. It is a good way to measure. It's better than actual big blind per 100. You also want to look at EV big blind per 100 late in the tournament. There's going to be a chapter on this, actually, by Alex Carr, who is the head of Poker.com, on EV big blind per 100 and what it suggests. Basically, unless you have a good EV big blind per 100, you should move down. Am I going to make a video blog in Jacksonville? Probably. Don't know if I'll air it because it's a kind of short trip, but we'll see. Actually, I don't think I've ever made a video blog and not aired it. Inevitably, something fun happens. What about a democratic voting system? Is that a good way to figure out what's going on? No, that's a horrible way to figure out what's going on. Where every vote is equal, while everybody isn't able to make, well, not everybody is able to make equally good decisions. No, I don't think a democratic voting system is ideal. For example, let's poll 100,000 people. Which baseball team is better? Okay? 100,000 people, we're going to poll which baseball team is better. The Atlanta Braves or the... Who else? What's another baseball team? I don't want to say the Astros because they're clearly better. Actually, let's pick 2 random teams from the Midwest. I don't know. Two random teams, Team A and Team B. Let's just say Team A and Team B. Team A and Team B. You have 2 minutes to research it. You Google it, they have the same record. Which one is better? Well, you don't know. You have no good information, right? Politics are actually shockingly like this because there's all sorts of nonsense. I think a lot of people, something a lot of people just do not grasp is that the internet and the television are not the only sources of information. This current Mike Postle poker thing is a very clear indicator of that. A lot of people are watching the streams without realizing that that is one small sliver of the information. The most valuable information is interviewing, at least as far as I can tell. I'm not an expert investigator. But imagine the most valuable information is speaking with the people involved. Speaking with the players in the games, speaking with everyone who works in the area, speaking with the people who are accused. And that will give you a very clear indicator of what is going on, as opposed to just watching a stream. Because watching a stream makes it very close to impossible to know who all was involved. And that is a giant oversight by a lot of people, in my opinion. And it's a good first step. I mean, my wife said this. She's a lawyer. I asked her the other day in the video, you can find it on YouTube, is like, is watching a stream all you really need to do to know the answers to this? She's like, that's a good first step. And that's the answer. It's a good first step. So if you asked, I mean, really, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you just don't have good information. If you don't have good information, why would you think you can make a good decision? And if everybody has bad information, certainly maybe 5% of the field has good information, but most of them just don't. Let's see. In Caribbean poker, do you have to play against the dealer? I don't know. So the Caribbean poker party is regular no limit Texas Hold'em. It's not the game Caribbean Stud, I believe. WPT Deep Stacks, yeah, that's a good game. If you lose a lot of hands, should you take a break? Maybe. Do people still use PT big blinds per 100? PT big blinds per 100 are small bets. That's from Limit Hold'em. No, typically no. You was watching me the other day. I was at the table when apparently Mike first started cheating. I think I've only played there a time or two, and both. I think all the times we're in Veronica's game. I'm friends with Veronica. She's nice. I like her, and everybody has a lot of drinks. So I think if you're gonna start running a scam, it's probably the best time to do it when everybody else is not paying the least bit of attention. That was one thing you did right. I'm gonna make more books on cash games. I just had one recently. Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. This is the book you need. You say you have both of them. I actually have 4 books on cash games. This is the newest on range analysis. It's not specifically on cash games, but it doesn't need to be. So there it is. Yeah, the Bears. The Bears are a good baseball team. When's that next book coming out? World Series next year. I have to go do a webinar very soon, so I have to pack it up. Do you enjoy playing poker tournaments when you're card dead? No, I don't actually enjoy playing poker all that much the vast majority of the time, because you sit there and you fold a lot. I do enjoy talking to people, having fun, and it's good. What mistakes do people make in mid-stakes poker tour tournaments? They with 100 big blinds or more, they inevitably make hands that are decent, like top pair. They make good marginal made hands, and they put all their money in with it. And you need to sit there and try to make hands that can beat the nuts. How many big blinds per 100 can you beat 1, 2, 4 hypothetically? Depends on how bad your opponents are. I was talking to my lawyer, Mac, who is working on this case. And I said that like 10 to 12 is a lot. 25 is basically impossible. All right, you're all talking a lot. Good, good, good. Sure you're not talking about nonsense. Yeah, you all are going to get me in trouble with this quote right here. It's probably true, though. You know, there's a company called Bridgewater Capital. It's a hedge fund. Ray Dalio's in charge of it. I don't know a whole lot about the company. Some people love them. Some people hate them. They have this idea of an idea meritocracy, where essentially every person there gets a baseball card with stats on themselves. So, for example, Jonathan Little is really good at poker, really bad at gardening, right? Really bad at designing ceramics. Really good at poker, probably okay at marketing, marginal at English, pretty good at writing books. Anyway, so if something comes up on gardening, they don't ask Jonathan Little at all. His opinion is irrelevant. Jonathan Little does not know how to garden. So don't ask him about that. Go ask Jonathan Little about poker. And maybe writing books, right? That's what he's good at. And turns out it seems like they make a whole lot of good decisions. One of the few hedge funds that has actually crushed it consistently somehow. Who knows how they're actually doing it, but anyway, they are crushing it. So that mindset, that I guess philosophy is what I like a lot. I was talking to my wife about this the other day about how poker is a game where if you are good and you put in the work, you move to the top. There's no other option. And corporate America, though, for the most part, that's not an idea of meritocracy. It's more of a dictatorship. you have to just put in time, and then everybody gets promoted the same, or roughly promoted the same. And that's I don't really like that. I like the idea of you get the results back from the effort you put in. Negreanu recommended my books on his stream. Well, that's nice. I'm glad they enjoyed it. You can sell 20 books right now if you offer a discount code. I don't have a discount code. Go to dnbpoker.com. You can see all my books. Get them if you want them. What's my longest winning streak in cash games? I don't know. I actually had weird cash game sessions compared to most. I'd usually play a pretty high variance style where I would either win a lot or lose a little. And that would work out for me winning like 50% of my game, 50% of my sessions. Some winning cash game players play a little bit of a lower variance style or probably in softer games. They have more like 66% win rate. And so what is the longest? I mean, I don't know. 4, 5, 6. I don't know. It doesn't even matter, right? Like that kind of stat doesn't really matter. When am I going to go play live at the bike? They haven't invited me. Any thoughts on Battle for Malta Poker Tournament? I don't know a thing about it, but Malta's a fun place, so go enjoy yourself. All right, I have to go. I have a webinar starting in 14 minutes. I have to compile a load of data for many of my best students. Enjoy yourselves. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you all for being here. If you want the one book you need, Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em, you can get it at jlpoker.com/mastering. Also, go to pokercoaching.com. I know some of you said you can't afford the $40 a month. Well, you can get a completely free trial membership that does not expire. Pokercoaching.com, scroll to the bottom, get in there and learn at least a little something. And if you don't want to go through even that process, go to youtube.com. Actually, go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/YouTube. It'll take you to my YouTube channel where, I don't know, there's probably 1,000 hours of content, maybe more. Yeah, somebody do some compiling of data. Figure out how many hours of content I have for free on the internet for all of you. So, it's all there. Hey, you know, if you want to get this book for free on Audible, if you've never signed up for Audible, go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/free. You don't even have to read it. I'll read it to you. You can listen to it as you fall asleep. One of my friends who's very, very well known told me that the other day that every single night he listens to me as he falls asleep. So he thinks, so we're like best friends, even though only I'm the one who does all the talking. All right, have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. I will be back on Wednesday. Bye-bye.